Broadcasting live from the command center located in Jacksonville, Florida, this is Military Witnesses to UAP. I am your host, Shannon Scott. And backed by popular demand, located deep in the Missouri woods, my right-hand man, Rob Heatherly. We both have assumed the duties and responsibilities of continuing the conversation. So, buckle up, hold my beer, hang on, and let's get started with today's briefings. Hey everyone, just want to let you know that today we've got, yes, we have Rob and we've got Jim Quirk.
So together we're the Three Amigos.
That's right. my life is like sound bites, man. I just do sound bites all the time. You know?
Do you know who I am?
Like that. And
People know me.
people know me. So Rob is having some issues. He's always got issues, right? But he popped out. That tells me that something wrong with his computer because the Air Force put too many bugs on that thing. So how was your first live stream?
Well, I guess it went pretty good. You know, I'm not using the kind of program that you have. I got to get that. I'll do that in the future at some point. I did have it before, but I am going to get it again. And, but yeah, I thought it worked out pretty good. It was fun.
Yeah, I did too. Yeah, I knew when Rob and I got into this, I mean, you look at our first episodes, holy smokes, they're rough, you know, but through time, we got things kind of ironed out and everything's fine, but what we got to do is keep ourselves healthy because that's the only thing that's preventing us these days from broadcasting it, whether I'm sick or Rob's been sick. He's been down for probably 2 weeks, I guess, forever. Hey, Anonymous Rex. Hey, Bob Berkins. Hi, Cliff C. Hi, Linda Thompson. Hey, what's up? What you got, Jim?
So, what Rob had COVID, didn't he? Or
Yeah.
Well,
he said it was kind of, the line was kind of there, and the first thing I texted him, I said, "Is that kind of like being pregnant?"
Yeah. When I had it, that's how it started off. It was kind of there, and then it was there big time after the next day. Like it just, and it lasted two good full weeks. You know, it was, it's not fun, not fun.
Yeah, my like a day or two before I even caught COVID, my wife was out to kill me. I think long story short, sitting in this chair, and she accidentally gave me a paper cut in my eyeball. Luckily, it didn't. Yeah. She was just reaching over, giving me a kiss or something, and the mail, an envelope, got me right in the tip. It was like 2 days later, I caught COVID. Yeah, so it's okay. I survived.
So what happens when you get a paper cut in the eyeball? How does that heal?
Oh
Pretty
man,
good?
it was the whole thing was red, bloodshot red. It didn't go, through the important stuff. It went through the conjunctiva and stuff. It was like the whole eyeball on this side was red. Let's see if Rob, are you doing better now, Rob? Did you restart your computer?
Yeah, I had like 300 maybe tabs open, so I think I overclocked Google and Chrome. Oh, my bad. I'm better now.
So the big news this week is that looked like Jeremy Carbell on a new podcast between him and George Knapp. They came up with Weaponized is the podcast or the YouTube channel. So I subscribed, and if you guys subscribe to me, you might want to subscribe to that new channel. And yep, there's a picture, and I don't have it handy, but it was taken by a drone in Iraq, that it took. It was actually, it's a still frame of a video of like a 3-second long video, and apparently this orb that looks like a 50-pound ball that Dr. Gary Nolan happens to have in his possession, or once had in his possession, which is just like that ball, right?
Yeah.
So when I saw it, first thing I'm thinking is, what are the debunkers? What would they say? I said, I don't know. They're going to say it's a BB on the inside of the housing of that camera.
I think it's Ralphie with his Christmas BB gun that shot it at a slow frame rate camera right before impact.
Yeah.
That's what that was.
Yeah.
Well, you know, the whole problem is, though, I mean, and not only that, but Mick West said it was something like a drop of water, water droplet. But the whole problem with that is the fact that the government has had this, and they had their people looking at it for over 6 years. And basically, they would have, if that's what it was, they would have said so, and we wouldn't even be looking at this, and Jeremy Corbell wouldn't have had it leaked to him. So that the bunkers arguments are nothing.
We need to re-evaluate who the healthy skeptics are, because Mick West is not included in that category. You know, we've proven that with his blog, where he's completely dogmatic. He can't acknowledge that there's any extraterrestrials, ghosts, gods, nothing, because it would shatter his paradigm dissociative wall that he built out of childhood fear. The only way he could reconcile the fear of abduction and all that was to deny any of it exists, and to open that door to even one case as authentic non-human intelligences or AI or earlier humans, break away of some sort. Then the dam bursts on him. He has no way to mitigate that and cope psychologically. He can't acknowledge. No matter what happens, he's going to be flipping out the most dogmatic and stupid explanations, like puppet shows, black men in welding goggles. It's absurd. I mean, we've allowed him, and he's also acknowledged that he's writing another book, and we're supplying him the information to put in it. He's not in this community to help. He's in it to get material, and he thinks this is a spectator sport. We're his amusement, and we need to stop giving him an audience, because he's irrelevant to this discussion.
Yeah, I'm actually guilty of giving him an audience myself, because I talk about the nonsense that he spews on a regular basis during my podcast. But, the problem is that he has a gigantic following, and there's a lot of people that believe him. In fact, I usually don't use Twitter, and I'm sure I just did a podcast where I was talking about how, I had some videos up there, and one of his followers comes on there and just starts giving me all kinds of stuff. And it's just it's like almost like a brainwashed cult or something at this point. Actually, they're a cult. I mean, they used to say that people who believe in UFOs, it's a cult, right? It's not a cult.
Mm-hmm.
They're the actual cult now.
We're following the science where it leads. They're not following the science where it leads. They're following their narrative where it leads, and they're excluding any data that goes against that. Just like Graham Hancock is coming under attack because of his new show on Netflix. He's the most dangerous man on Netflix because of his show. And if you haven't noticed, Google and Chrome or all them are pushing mainstream narratives of ancient history now, because he's got the entire status quo in an uproar, and as it should be, because they, I understand people fear change, but when it's the truth, they need to be able to adjust. That's not science when they're denying facts at their discretion that don't fit their narratives. That's a cult, like you're saying. That's dogma. That's a religion that they're practicing. They're not practicing science.
We're heading, what was going on here is like, to me, it's becoming like, it's almost like arguing with someone who believes the earth is flat. That's where I think we're heading. That's what it seems like to me. Because I mean, not only did we have the story with the Mazel orb, right? Not only that, but the other story that no one seems to be talking about is what Chris Lato put forth last week when he had that Ukraine, that astronomer from Ukraine give him those updated the updated papers. Scientific papers that now state that those objects are definitely not insects or birds or military shells, and they're actually objects that determined that are traveling at 46,000 miles per hour and are of gigantic in size. They're, so I mean, to me, right? Nobody's talking about that. You would have thought that something like that would have made it into the mainstream, but it has not.
They, just like the secondary countries that play off the United States, because we have so many favors that we call in and operational control over the data outflow from them, they're not going to acknowledge what we don't want them to acknowledge on this topic. They don't want to break ranks because they lose, perks, benefits, and things. And I'm not saying they're all sellouts, but there's inherent pressures when you make alliances with people. And it took 75 years to create this disinformation campaign. It's going to take Congress a few years of undoing it. But, like Swan's saying, but they are doing that. It's taking each successive year with the NDAAs. There is more and more strong and solid language in there, establishing more firm guidelines, rules, and laws, and permanent offices and committees. And they took it out of control of Bray and Lou's old office, so they can't control the narrative like they were doing in that press conference with the top scientists over Arrow that they did the other week. So, those are significant moves. So it's coming.
Yeah.
So they're going to have to rewrite ancient history. They're going to have to rewrite modern history because they are interrelated and their fates are intertwined. We've been dealing with some of the same entities back then that we're dealing with now. They never left, whatever they are. And it's narrow and short-sighted of us to think that there's one single they in order or classification, because history does not show that at all. It shows that there was a variety, and there still is. And just because we think that they've transcended, they survived off planet, doesn't mean that they're completely altruistic and without war. That is another fallacy. They tell us that we can't ascribe them human attributes because they're not human, but then they turn around and apply that they're human, but they're a pacifist race now. That some of them are, some of them aren't, as we've seen with many abduction reports. So going back clear into antiquity, read Jacques books with Passport to Magonia and Dimensions. He explains cases back to 1400 BC. They're in every fashion and manner you can think of. Some are kabuki theater, but some are actual living creatures of other species, like what they caught in Virginia. And I did some research on that recently. I think the reason he was outgassing ammonia was because it liquefies at room temperature unless they're under about 60 to 92 atmospheres of pressure. So wherever he was from was either extremely cold or extremely pressurized. So that would explain it, the ammonia smell.
So do you think those creatures that were found in Virginia, do you think that they're different than the Greys then? Do you think that that's
definitely.
Do you think the government
and their eyes, they were probably seeing ultraviolet, so you're talking probably like something on a brown dwarf type, probably a yellow dwarf or an orange dwarf.
Do you believe that there are that the government is aware that there are many different kinds of things coming here?
I think there are different pockets, but I think like with the intelligence failure before 9/11, they had so many compartmentalized silos because this is some of it is legitimate. I can understand it, that this topic is so high above, nuclear secrets and things like that, that the level of security and also the 0-point energy that they may have reverse engineered, they don't want it to get out. So they don't even know of other SAPs that exist. So there's not been a major communication between all these different silos and legacy programs. And a lot of them are sitting on technologies and reverse engineered, I dare say. And I'm not saying that they have the ability to cure diseases and eternal life and all that. I don't. But I think with 0 point energy, things of that, I think they have made some inroads that they're holding back on because they don't. If we exhibit it on a battlefield that is not just next gen, it's like 10 gens down the road. They don't want to have to answer to Congress of where did that come from. You know, you guys have been lying to us, and you know when they lied to Congress again and Clinton in '93 about Roswell, they've got a lot of embarrassing explaining to do. But how also can they explain that? Yeah, we know they're here. We've known they've been here since '45 at least. We don't know exactly what they are, and we don't know how to stop them. Well, I think that as Arrow comes out and they're able to cross flow with these different SAPs and coordinate them and SCI groups, they are comparing notes and they can look at the historical. And I think they have a very good assessment in theory. It's just until, you know, the holy grail is crash retrieval, you know, of getting hold of craft for Congress or in the existing like Arrow or somebody, until they can wheel it into Congress and show the highliners that are skeptical, which I understand them being skeptical because this is completely against their world paradigm that even their ancestors believed in. So until they've got a craft wheeling in front of them and the bodies and to prove that that's what they are, a lot of them aren't going to accept it. So they're having to slow roll it out to Congress as well, not just us. You know, you got the Gang of Eight that are on the permanent intelligence committees. They are read in on a lot of this, but I think their constituents, even in some of those committees, aren't completely read in, and the rest of Congress, without clearance or the need to know, don't. But they want to know, you know. So that's why you have all these congressmen that don't have the security clearance and aren't in these programs. They know that, like Burchett, that we're being lied to. You know, he wants to know the truth too. They're just as left in the dark as we are, but it's coming out. But it's hard for the government to acknowledge they don't have control of the situation and that they've been lied to. And the embarrassment for the Air Force to come online and say that they've lied, and they lied twice even. Some of those people might still be in office from '93, or at least getting their pension still. And that's what got mine and his computer shut down last time I was railing about this. So I'm not going to do it a lot tonight. But Congress and the majority of the DOD and the scientific community have been left in the dark on this. I think the DOE, OSI, and the other Nuclear Regulatory Commission or something, and maybe NRO and Space Force, the things that are looking up, you know, from 62.5 miles upward, they've got a better idea what's going on, but they haven't been sharing it. And I understand some of the reasons why they wouldn't. And some, you know, presidents are temporary. And if you don't have the need to know, why risk the security breach? Because if our adversaries got hold of any reverse engineered, or we gave them a piece of the puzzle that allowed them what they were missing for their reverse engineered programs, it'd be all over with. I don't think they're so much worried about them, you know, our far-flung neighbors, as we are our adversaries that we know. We don't want to give them an operational edge over us. But I think it's short-sighted of us to also think that just because they haven't been a threat in modern times, that they're not going to be. Going off of regular, you know, basic military tactics and doctrine, if we apply this, you know, this is all throughout nature of predator and prey, you know, that they have advanced scouts. I mean, they're giving every indication since 45 when we set off Trinity that they're advanced scouting our nuclear capabilities, our military capabilities around the world. Anytime they run out new tactics or new equipment, whether it's nuclear or not, in every major military, they are there observing. And there's more than one type craft. We're seeing many. So it looks like, you know, we're in a proxy battle, not so much a battle, but an information competition to stay on top of it. And, you know, they may be wanting to come in for a peace mission, but some people may not want them here. And like the Russians and China and Iran, they fire on them. So, you know, if they give them some resistance, they're going to have to defend themselves. So, you know, everyone keeps saying, well, they haven't stopped us from killing ourselves. Why would they do that now? Well, if they help terraform this planet and it's their home too, at least part of them, or a place to go if their planet gets damaged or something, for whatever reason, they've got a vested interest in keeping Earth not turned into a dead rock like Venus or like Mars, or you know, a thermal perpetual sweat box like Venus. So a lot of them, from every indication we've had since 40,000 BC or so with some of the cave paintings, they've been here at least as long as us, and I dare say a lot longer. We've got Cartwrights that are over, 3 million years old, and some of it goes back 25 million years. And they proved it by earthquake fault lines that shifted the Cartwrights. So those weren't being drugged by cavemen, dragging their, woolly mammoth kills across the same path, over and over and over until they wore it down into the bedrock. It softened the stones, it displaced it like mud, and it re-solidified. That's an artifact of some very high technology. The same thing that, like with the megaliths that they built. So they've been here a very long time, at least some of them. And it looks like different at different times in history, like the Vedics and the Sumerian texts, the Bible, all these. There's the Norse gods, the Greeks. They all talk about wars among the gods and us being sometimes caught in the crossfire, and that sometimes they're benevolent towards us, and some of them are malevolent and enslaved us. And that around 3000 BC with a global deluge, that seemed to be a game changer, and they've pretty much digressed from being overtly among humanity, living among us as little g gods, to leaving us alone to make our own determination. But now we're at the point where we can destroy this planet and everything on it and sterilize it for tens, if not hundreds of thousands of years, or even millions maybe. And you don't invest that much time into a planet and just let somebody come in and destroy it. I mean, would you build a new home and then let some squatters come in and burn it to the ground?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I think you make a lot of good points, and I mean, like I was just talking just recently about how it seems that the idea that they're that they're watching us, and they're concerned. I mean, they're concerned about how we're becoming more advanced every single day. I think. I mean, and I think that's where I think that's probably why the activity has when you really think about it, the activity really picked up after 45. You had the ghost rockets, and then in 47 you have all the saucers showing up, and I think that's because of what we did with the atomic bomb. And now we're getting more advanced every day, and they're getting. I think that these things are looking at this and they're very concerned, right? And I think another thing is like, here's the other issue, is that we are advancing tremendously. In fact, I was talking with somebody today about it. I was talking to my son, and he doesn't understand what it was like in the 70s compared to now. It's unbelievable, right? It's unbelievable. And how that's only 20, how many years ago? Like, so we're only talking 45.
They can't imagine life. They don't understand that there was a time that there wasn't internet and cell phones. That is not nothing. They don't even think about that. It's not, it isn't even a generalization. They have no point of reference to that.
Right. And when we were growing up, we had no point of reference really to what it was like when there was no TV or radio even. Like we just we are advancing so fast. And I would imagine to an outside intelligence looking at this, and not only that, but the violence that we incur upon each other. I mean, you see all the crap that's going on everywhere. I mean, with everything that's going on, you would have to be concerned. You'd have to be thinking to yourself, these people are going to be, at some point here, I don't know, maybe 1,000 years, who knows how long.
That we're at the point that we can completely strip flesh from bone and destroy the whole planet. So, this is nothing new in every culture and every major religion and every ancient mythology.
All it's going to take is one madman. I mean, if you have one madman hitting some buttons, and then the next thing you know, everybody's hitting buttons, and it's over. I mean, that's where we are. And we don't have any way of it. There's not much really control, especially when you're looking at a country like North Korea, for instance. You have one madman basically controlling the whole shebang. All he has to do is just say the word, and guess what? We're in World War III. I mean, we can't. I mean, there's no safety stops. And that's one
I dare
of the problems.
say that they have us under such acute monitoring that they know what everybody's going to do, and on the chessboard. If one moves, what other people's moves are, what they planned out. I've heard through several different people with this AI type surveillance system that they have. Of course, they would know all of our battle plans. That's why we have skip rooms to try and isolate to not have that. But there are I've talked to different people from completely different demographics that think that there are aspects of phenomena that want disclosure and some that don't, because the ones that don't would want us to be caught, like in a doomsday scenario where we're launching nukes, and then they're like, okay, we're not going to allow that, but we're going to go ahead and take you out because you guys didn't learn the lesson. Whereas the ones that want to roll out disclosure and maybe have a conversation, hey, look, you guys might want to get rid of these because, it's really not good for the environment. The celestial Al Gore, and that one I would be inclined to believe. So I don't think that they're going to interfere in the affairs of humans killing each other off conventionally, but they're not going to. And this is just my thought process, but I'm looking at history. I don't think they're going to let us sterilize the planet. Some of them call this home too. Some of them, there are footprints, and I can't prove it. There's very good evidence to suggest that there were shoe prints, double stitched, from like 200 million years ago in fossilized.
I saw that. I
Yeah.
think I saw it on the.
So,
I was actually rewatching an old In Search Of episode where they actually showed that footprint.
Like that. They've got nanotechnology of tungsten carbide and things that they dug up at at 30 feet below a gravel bed in Russia, where they found these parts. And they found a spark plug in some rock. They found a piece of metal wiring that they couldn't cut through in a Chinese rock. They said it's probably the most valuable rock on the planet. That has this, it's like a silver braided wiring of some type that's just super hard. And they don't know, they know it's not natural, but the rock it's in is hundreds of millions of years old. So we really don't know how far we go back. The process to fossilize bones is it has to be so precise that it's almost an anomaly to have any fossilized bones. And for human bones to be fossilized is a very rarity to be found over 200 to 300,000 years. There are a few examples that were swept into caves or something and covered up really quick, like how they've had mass die-offs with the Younger Dryas and Chilicoocoob, 66 million and 240 million years ago. But without those major catastrophes to quickly bury them and freeze them, then the conditions aren't good. And we're not that big compared to megafauna of woolly mammoths and things. Our skeletons just don't survive. Our skulls do, but the rest of it just. I've got pictures of excavations from 4,500 BC, and the bones are just dust. They dig them up and it just powderize. The skull's a little better off, but the rest of the bones aren't as thick. They just powderize. So, like Randall Carlson keeps saying, 10,000 years, what's going to be left? Because you have cargo cults that venerate the ancients because they had all the high tech as gods. We've got tribes in Africa right now running around with digital watches strapped to their heads because they think it gives them power because we are as gods to them. So all these artifacts they found afterwards would have been used as tools or status symbols and all that until they were, the only things that survive is gold, stone, and silver and precious jewels and, and things of that nature. The rest of it rusts, corrodes, and, what's going to be left after 10,000
weathers away.
Yeah. It gets dissolved. It gets swept into the, it gets recirculated under the, with convection, with getting, swept out to sea and, subducted. So it just keeps getting recycled. And, they, over time, hundreds of millions of years. And there are even some speculation now with tectonic plates that they're not like the mountains, the upshifts of them, like the Rocky Mountains and the Alps, how sharp they are. They're finding now that that's not, the gradualism model isn't working anymore because it looks like, I've got a friend Dusty that's on Twitter that studies the comet impacts. It looks like some of these tectonic plates and these mountain ranges were upthrust in an instant in geological time from impacts that were the size of Chilicoocoob or the ones that killed the dinosaurs 266 million years ago that just quickly moved the tectonic plates and crunched them together. And it's like with Peru, I don't think it was always at 13,000 feet. I think some of that was actually at shoreline, at ocean level. And you get these huge impactors and people, geologists and things don't want to acknowledge that we can be hit like that and anywhere near 300 million years, forward. That's, that's recent in geological time, and they don't want to acknowledge something like that could happen. It's terrifying.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So as you're speaking about bones and how they disappear, it just crossed my mind, and this has nothing to do with anything except for, the the Aurora 1897 crash. Is there any possibility that those bones are still there? And I mean, would they? I mean, after over 100 years, or would they be disintegrated by now?
Which crash?
The 1897
Aurora,
Aurora,
Colorado?
Texas. Aurora, Texas. Aurora,
Yeah,
Texas. Remember,
yeah,
there was a
Aurora,
body was
Texas.
buried apparently.
Yeah, I think they went and dug it up. They had buried it, and I think that there would be. There is one intact elongated skull skeleton that they found in Crimea that is probably about 3 feet tall. It's got an elongated head, and it's got really narrow hips. It's the only intact skeleton attached to an elongated skull that I'm aware of that they've ever found. There's some that were dug up in the Persian Gulf that go back about 4,000 BC. That have skeletons attached, but most of those are in fragments, and part of their heads are crushed because of the pressures and things. But there are a few examples out there. You can Google the one in Crimea for the gray. It looks like a little gray humanoid. It's got this really tight, really narrow hip bones that would make it very frail. It's a classic gray, what you would think it would look like. I'm not saying that's what it is, but it's compelling for thought and conversation that some instances they can. But see, you have the Smithsonian and the Vatican both snapping up large human remains, because if you go back through all the newspapers in the United States, they were finding 7-8 foot skeletons like at Lovelock Cave that had double row teeth, 6 fingers and things, and they keep disappearing. They had in Tennessee an entire graveyard of little people like they found in Pryor Mountains up in Wyoming with Pedro. They've got archaeologists now digging up their artifacts to prove that these little people existed that are only probably 2.5 feet tall or less. They had a graveyard when they first came into the Tennessee Valley where there were at least hundreds of these little skeletons buried there. And they keep building over these. They disappear. They just keep disappearing. Even on Catalina Island, there was a guy there, an archaeologist in the early 1900s that found dozens and dozens of giant bones that were at least 7 foot tall, and that's huge compared to Native Americans. And humans in the Middle Ages were only like 5'4". If you go look at the armor in Europe, after the Dark Ages, they weren't very big people that survived. So, they're little guys. So when you find skeletons that are 7 foot, red-haired, and fair-skinned giants with elongated skulls, then something's up here. And why do they keep hiding this away? They both have their own. I'm sure they have many reasons, but if you, and this isn't saying that religion is false. It's just they don't want anything that's going to cause doubt. So the Vatican is going to sock away anything that doesn't fit their narrative, because the Catholic Church, hell, they want to get rid of Protestants. I mean, for God's sake. So if they find a UFO or a body that isn't human, they're not going to put it out there in the museum. Hell no. They've got their reasons, and some of them are valid, some aren't. But that's just the nature of things.
Well, I was thinking, if in fact, if the bones of that Aurora alien from the Aurora 1897 crash, if they happen to still be there, that could be the proof that could end all of this.
Yeah, but they dug up the gravestone and moved it, and they played the shell game, so no one knows. No one from outside of that town, and the ones who moved the body around and removed the headstone, they won't allow ground penetrating radar in there, so they're not going to allow it to be found.
Well, so what happened actually was one of the things that happened in 1973 was that when this became a big story after all these years, one guy had a metal detector, and there was metal actually buried in that grave in this Aurora cemetery. But then the one not long, like a couple of months later, there were that he brought the metal detector in there again, and there was no more metal in there. And he found there were 3 holes drilled into the ground, and apparently they used some sort of a vacuum equipment to suck whatever was down there. I mean, apparently, I guess the metal would have came from the craft that crashed.
Yeah, I heard
but I'm
about
wondering
that.
if they got the bones too, or if the bones are still down
No.
there. That's what I'm wondering, and I guess not. I'm
I
assuming they're long gone.
I think that they have contemporary, like from Roswell, like in Peru, that they have recovered bodies. So I think they've got them on ice, that we don't have to go that far back if we want to, as citizens and civilians. But see, they are in one way or another persuaded to not allow us to recover it. But see, there's also this aspect, and Swan's saying that they're mantis type insects. There's, if there's one type, there's going to be dozens, if not many dozens of different species out there. There's not going to be one specific type that we're dealing with. That, history does not show that. It shows that there are many different types. There are earlier advanced humans out there even that are tooling around, and they are walking among us, and we can't tell them apart from ourselves because they are us. They're just earlier versions that gained advanced technology, and as technology is pushed into the human consciousness, this is how a lot of the geniuses and things got their revelations. It wasn't, for the most part, long suffering in labs. It was a flash that they acknowledged that came to them in dreams or lucid waking states, that was pushed to them by an outside energy, that they just basically dictated it. They didn't originate it, and they don't even claim to have been the originators of it. I mean, the first emperor of China was given a written language, how to laws. The same thing happened in Samaria. It's happened over and over around the world, that there are, after the Younger Dryas, that you have Wanus that came out of the oceans, and the Apkallu and the 7 sages that went around the planet after the Younger Dryas, and also after the last flood at 3200 BC, that helped humanity get restarted again, that were benevolent towards us. But then there are also some that was warring against us to try to make the floods happen in the first place, to destroy us and get us off the planet, or at least take us down enough that, there's not enough left of us to put up a fight, because maybe they want to repopulate it. Who knows? They've all got, they're not immune to having their own special interests that are self-serving. So, I think we have many dynamics in play. I think our government is aware of the potentials and possibilities, but as far as concrete evidence, it's like Jacques Vallée says, and Eric Weinstein. Jacques says it's absurd because it's half evidence and half absurdity, and Weinstein says, the secondary evidence is overwhelming, but it's almost like the phenomena, whatever it may be, or at least the ruling part of it that has executive control, it's only going to allow out there the evidence that it wants, and that there are factions that don't want it out there. I guess what I'm saying is, no matter how much evidence we come up with, if we find a craft and we're taking it to the White House, if they don't want us to show it, it's somehow not going to make it, because they know everything we're doing, and if they want it to go forward, they'll allow it. And I think that there is even not a one accord of that among the others to do that even. So we can't presume they're in lockstep and there's just one them. That's ludicrous from a historical viewpoint to consider that.
You're talking about beings. You're talking about non-human intelligence.
Exactly.
You're saying that there's more than just. Well, now here's the thing, though. Doesn't it seem like with all the stuff that's gone on throughout the decades? I mean, I think that there's more than one. There's no question, based on a lot of the reports, right? Based on some of the different descriptions of stuff. I mean, you look at the Shrum case. I mean, those things don't.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that seems different. The Pascagoula case, that seems different. But it seems like the predominant beings has been these grays, and with the how many stories were so similar where they have the grays and the praying mantis. Yes, but I mean, but it seems that isn't that predominant though? Wouldn't you say? Isn't that the predominant?
They're the most outwardly aggressive. But see, the Kabuki theater that Jacques Vallée talks about, that has been here, because I mean, you got to remember, we've had airships in the late 1800s that were in the Americas that had English accents, that they made the Americans think that, oh, we're from Europe, and we're just a little more advanced than you are. and that's how we made these flying ships and stuff. And in Europe, they're pretending to be Americans, and we're just a little out of touch over there, where you can't quite, you can relate to us, but you can't gain our level of technology because we're just a little more advanced. And they've always stayed a little bit ahead. That's an entirely different system, I think, than the natural other species of beings. We've got different things in play here, because that system within systems that John talks about can manifest in any form it wants. It wasn't that people mistook gods in antiquity as for aliens and stuff. They were exactly what they were meant to present as at the time, in different places, different times. So they showed up as cryptids, they showed up as deities, they showed up as pagan deities, they showed up as everything. Those are these systems and systems.
What would you say to like say that what's really happening here? This is just a complete theory that just popped into my head. But what would you say if what's happening here is there's all these different kinds of beings, and there's been all different reports over the decades, but but they're all part of some sort of a galactic federation. Well, I don't know what they would call it, but let's just say for the sake of argument. But but we have this hybridization program ongoing that seems to be controlled by these praying mantises and the grays. But what if they were like contracted out by the rest of them to get control over us?
That is we need to be stretching our imaginations as far as we can go before our mind snaps. And that's where we need to start imagining. We need to expand our paradigms, because I think what the reality is that's going to manifest is going to be so alien that mantids and grays are going to be completely short of what actually we're going to be encountering. Like Randall Carlson talks about, that there's a good chance we're a binary star system. That would account for the 26,000 year precessional cycle of going from the golden age, silver, bronze, and into the stone age. It has nothing to do with how humans learned in advancing how to work metals. It has to do with when we're in closer proximity to other solar bodies in our local neighborhood, that seem to gravitate around us as the pivot, center axis, about 30 to 50 light years across. When we have more suns closer to the Earth, there is a higher energy state across the board that seems to allow for higher cognitive function, higher these 0 point energies. In the golden ages, they're able to propagate a lot more. I think those are the times on Earth when these other species emerge from other places and other dimensions, because it's a fertile, rich environment to manifest in. And when that energy is digressing back away again, as the solar systems move away and the precessional cycles of the planet, there's a lower state of energy, and they don't fare as well here. They go where the money is. They follow the trail of better, greener pastures. So if you're intersolar, and there's a local arm here of about 12 to 15 different solar sun systems that have habitable planets, they're going to be playing musical chairs to where it's when their planets and their systems are in their golden age. In this we have theoretically a 26,000 year orbit around Sirius, like planets orbit our sun. We have a 65-day cycle, but all the other planets have a different year span. So other solar systems that would orbit theoretically around Sirius would also have different lengths of golden ages, in that cycle. So it's not beyond the imagination to think that they are going to where they can best utilize the natural environment to maximize their living experience and their technology advancements and things like that.
Now, you have to wonder sometimes, maybe there's a climatization program going on right now, getting the planet better suited.
Well, people think that we have global warming. If they look at the Milankovitch cycles that go back 450,000 years, there's a natural heartbeat of the planet. And they used to think ice ages lasted for 100 to 150,000 years each. They don't. They last for about 10 to 15,000 year cycles each. And the scary part is we could go into another ice age within 4 to 5 days if the Gulf streams and the currents, I forget the names of them right now, But if the air stops moving north from the equator and the warm waters, if those stop, then you can start having ice build up at the poles, almost instantaneously, and cause violent storms and rain and fallout that would, I wouldn't say it'd be like the day after tomorrow, but I'm hearing just recently in the last couple of 3 years, and I think Randall's even talking about it, that you can have an ice age onset within weeks that could just really, when those systems shut down, the weather patterns become so extreme that you could have a scenario where the poles are rapidly building up ice again. It's not, sorry, Bob, but it's not out of the realm of possibilities that Canada could be under, a huge blanket of ice and snow within months if this should happen. And where we're at on that scale, it's like we probably got another few hundred years or maybe 1,000 or two, but the cycle for 200,000 years has been every 2,000 to 3,000 years we've been set almost back to the brink of extinction. This last 5,000 years is the longest run humanity has not been set back to the brink. Now, is that artificial or is that just luck of the draw? That's 5% out of the whole that didn't happen. So I'm kind of having to lean toward to maybe it's not completely natural that we've not been put back to the Stone Age this time. And Randall talks about these in the Vedics and all them talk about it, that there's these when they use 0-point energy that they can shield the Earth from these impactors and things. Because if you get other suns or other planets like Planet 9 that perturbate the orbits of the planets, especially the outer ones, then it's only natural if there are suns with their gravitational mass and things that are going to be kicking in comets and things in our crowd. I mean, look at this one that's coming in now, the Bernstein Bears one that came in for 2019. I'm just kind of making a joke of the name. It's the largest comet since 40,000 BC that we have seen. It's massive, and it's going to rotate out around Uranus and stuff, so it's not going to come into the inner solar system. But if it happens to get within the orbit of one of the major gas giants, it could completely change the ball game. But there are even some films that I've seen recently, and Chiblinks, I may be wrong on this, but there almost looks like there was a craft that went flying through it and broke it up before it hit the ground. And my eyes weren't that good, but I watched the footage and other people go over them and slow them down. And I don't know this for a fact. It's just an example. It appears that we are having some kind of overwatch that are helping our planet not be hit with some major impactors again. And we've been guarded and shielded, it seems like, for about 5,000 years now. So I don't know what the outcome is going to be. And there is a lot of celestial mechanics that is acknowledged by random people, like in Revelations. And I'm not trying to pound one religion or one theology, but there's a lot of natural physiological prophecy. It's not just prophecy, it's cycles of time that was like in Hamlet's Mill of the Book. This is cyclic. Every 26,000 years that we go through these cycles and half cycles within these different times, it is a message forward in time to let people know, hey, this is going to come back around again, and you need to be watching for it. That's what Hamlet's Mill was about. That's what a lot of the Vedics are about. The Kali Yugas, the long counts, the alchemy, all that was to, and Mithricism was to warn us that this is going to happen again. Not, that's taking the alien equation completely out of it. That's just the geological and the astronomical impacts of it, notwithstanding the other.
Hey, Rob, is there any geologist or anybody putting out this information, or is this
Yeah. Oh yeah. I don't bring this stuff up in a vacuum in my own mind. I just sit around and imagine it.
Yeah. I know you don't. I just wanted you to at least say that part.
There are papers available. There are a lot of actual white papers, scholarly reports that are peer reviewed that talk about these things. There are 4 peer reviewed papers on Sumerian texts that go through and talk about them. The Hamlet's Mill has a lot of peer reviewed occurrences of celestial mechanics and things. So there's a large body of evidence. There's the binary star research group. There's a few of them out there, and I found a lot of their work. Walter Crittenton, I think, is one of the guys' names. It's like an astrophysicist. There's a lot of astrophysicists, physicists on board with this. These aren't just random YouTubers like us without any degrees. These are people that are tenured, that are like Gary Nolan in their perspectives, in their categories, that are at the tops of their fields, that are crying this from the rooftops, that may not be the complete truth of what's been going on. Some of it, they don't want to terrify us, but some of it is like what they say about the overclassification. It is detrimental, not helpful. So they may think that they're helping us, our government and our parts of our military, of keeping this a secret for 75 years. We could have been talking about this 50 years ago, that there was a alien presence here that is not happy with our nukes, and we need to do something about it. We could have had a discussion in the mid-60s, but instead here we are now. How far along have we come since then with advancements in nuclear weapons and things? We're almost like at 0 hour on the atomic clock. So that's on them. We should have been having this discussion 50 freaking years ago. Is the civilization across the board? Reagan knew this. That's why he talked about that at the UN. That right. Is not an alien threat already among us?
No, they are. And you know what? I mean, well, I mean, they've been showing up. I mean, over nuclear weapon sites. I mean, since what? Since the 60s. I mean, shutting down missiles. Turning them on. In Russia. I mean, how many times does it happen? How many times we don't even know about? It's probably something that happens.
The Hastings book. It is dozens of. I was shocked when I read the book. Holy cow! I was shocked. I thought it was just a few incidences. No, it is the majority. And isn't it interesting that nobody has fired off a nuke, even in testing, since I think the mid 70s? Maybe little Kim did, but for the most part,
Kim did. I mean, I think Russia did too, didn't they? When was the last time
in a mountain?
Russia
did? They did it in a mountain, North Korea.
Yeah, but see, the Russia and the United States, they haven't popped anything off since the 70s.
I think it's because there's I mean, I brought this up before. I think one of my thoughts on this is the fact that I think it's very possible that these countries actually have come to the conclusion that if they do happen to launch a nuclear weapon at somebody, that it's going to be game over for us. And then that's when we're going to, or maybe it will be stopped. Maybe these beings have the ability to actually stop it from happening.
There was that one in California that was shot up. That was just a test nuclear. It was a nuclear dummy, and that UFO craft went around from 3 sides and blew it up. They're showing us what they can do. They're like, okay, we can mitigate these. So whether you're firing them off, whether they're in a silo, we can turn them off, we can turn them on. If you think you can be sneaky and get them off the launch pad, we'll just blow them up before they.
Maybe right now the people really don't know this, but maybe nuclear weapons are really obsolete and we just have no idea that maybe there's some sort of
taken offline and they're not wanting to admit it.
That's possible.
Theoretically, all these nuclear countries could have their nuclear capabilities disarmed right now, and none of them want to admit to the other ones that ours aren't online. Are yours? Who wants to make that first phone call? Yeah. Nobody. It would be suicide for that country, especially if Russia and China found out. I'd like to think that the United States is a little more altruistic, because at the end of World War II, we could have taken over the planet if we wanted to. We didn't. We're not colonizers. I'm not saying that we are completely squeaky clean as America, but at least we tried to do the right thing.
We did. We actually did. We did do the right thing. Yes.
Yes, we're still doing that. But Russia and China, I mean, the Great Leap Forward with the Mao Zedong, he killed 45 million of his own people in the mid 40s after World War II to try and bring them into the modern age, because he forced everybody. He built these cities and thought, okay, I can put everybody into urban centers and start working in the factories and quit raising chickens. And a lot of people didn't want to go, and they ended up starving to death. Their complete collapse, and it killed almost 50 million people. And that's not including the ones that they took guns away and then killed the dissidents.
Yeah. Yeah, what if I mean I getting back to this whole idea with the what's going on right now. I mean, we hear threats every now and then. We hear Putin issuing threats. Hey, I'll drop a nuclear bomb on Ukraine if you don't do this or that. Well, what if it's all just talk and people and certain officials anyway within the United States, certain officials in other countries, they know it's talk. Russia, Putin himself knows it's all talk because they really actually can't do it. They just can't do it, and they know it.
I mean, this is just pure speculation on my part here because I have nothing to back this up, obviously, but it's just by human nature. The Air Force being so obstinate in coming forward with the information and resisting the intent of Congress and laws, and a lot of people losing their rank and their jobs and their pensions, they fear something more than the U.S. government and prosecution. What would there be that you would fear more than that? It would almost have to be that you are aware that there's something out there, and if Maelstrom is true and they made some kind of accords or treaties with them, or that there could have been multiple accords and treaties made, and these other, each silo and SAP doesn't know the other one made a deal with a different race even. I mean, it's hypothetically, it could be taking place, and they don't want to acknowledge this. They can't come out and admit it because they've been instructed not to, or they will cease to exist. I mean, hell, in Peru, we've got humans doing that to people that were in crash retrievals. If they can convince them to not speak because they would wipe out their entire families, what do you think the fear that an alien species could put into a group? Yeah. So, there's more that's going on than we know. And I think that there's some healthy fear on as to why some aren't advancing their SAPs and their crash retrieval programs and rolling out the crap. I think they're afraid of the implications, not just from human repercussions, but maybe more than that.
I feel like a madman sometimes when I say this, and I'm gonna feel like a madman sometimes, like right now when I say it. But I mean, one of the ideas that keeps coming to my head is the fact if they're walking among us, and it's not just people like David Jacobs. I mean, I've heard some other people talking about this. James Fox talked about it, that he met with some people that told him about this, that they are among us. If they are among us, right, is it possible that they have infiltrated key offices within governments? I mean, is that possible that they are pulling the strings from behind the scenes and we don't even, and maybe even some of our own officials don't even realize it? I mean,
slide 9. They can control human interface. They can roll time forward and backward. If they make a move they didn't like, hit the rewind button, guys. Play it forward again. Let's dub it.
So you think it's possible that they basically have they have the ability to basically rewind time?
Yes, they do. That is on slide 9. If they can cause a commercial airliner to stop at 32,000 feet midair, I mean, what can't they do?
I think
if they can make a craft and the grays materialize out of thin air, literally, and disappear again back into energy from a mass state, they can do a lot of things. I mean, they can shapeshift. They could go into a meeting as a general or a president, and you wouldn't know that it's not them, and sign all these things into law or change tactics, whatever. We do not have the confidence of executive control or fate in our determination. But it's also indicated that we are not alone in this, left to our own devices, that we have no overwatch that are benevolent towards our survival as a species. That is a clear indication in the last 5,000 years that we haven't been subjugated by an overt species on the planet, putting us in slavery again. That hasn't happened. We haven't been, treated like food products wholesale of somebody cruising through. Hey, these guys look tasty. Let's drop into Earth and have a snack. It hasn't happened. There are some instances of it with cattle mutilations and stuff, but those seem to be, you've got your criminals in every culture, or predators, as the case may be. Who's to say that we can't consider that that is going on? But it seems to be the exception, not the rule. And if they're caught, I dare say that there are implications for that. So, they're not all of them, are gods. and they can't discount that aspect. But notwithstanding, we're just talking about aliens here. You know, they have the persistent monitoring, they have these AI systems in place and things, but they're not completely foolproof no matter how good they are. Because if you've got two competing factions at least with similar capabilities, of course they're going to be figuring out new ways to spook each other and get the higher ground. Hypothetically, you know, philosophically speaking, they're having a cold war of trying to get advancements on each other and alliances and it's turning out, and I hate to say it, because when I first came into this 2 years ago, I would have told myself I'm completely stark raving Looney Tunes for this, but it seems like it's more like Star Wars than it is the Waltons out there.
Then it is
And
what?
that it's more like Star Wars than the Waltons are reality.
Yeah, I actually believe that. I think you're right about that. It is. I think it is more like more like Star Wars than the Waltons. Yeah, that does seem to be the case. There's something. I mean, there's obviously multiple. I mean, there's so many different tentacles to the thing and to this whole thing. There's so many different. I mean, we're never going to get. Even if we were to find out everything that our government knows, we're still not going to know everything because there's just too much. There's. I'm sure that they can't know everything. There's just no way that even the secret control group, whether it's Majestic 12 or whatever it is, there's no way that they could know everything. There's just no way. I can't see it.
Yeah.
What's going on here? I mean, something's going. I mean, you just were talking about cattle mutilations. Okay, you're suggesting that it could be criminal aliens, I guess, right?
Predatory ones.
Predatory ones. Okay, but what? I mean, I don't know. What if it's just simply getting
our government? I hate to say it, but if they say, okay, if you let us exist and pretend that we're in charge, we'll let you have X amount of humans a year. I shudder at the thought, but that's not beyond the pale. Look what Hitler did.
Right. Well, you never know. I guess again, the way humans are,
rogue factions speaking for humanity when they don't have the authority. But who's gonna call them on it when they don't know they even exist?
I have a problem like when I hear stuff like Eisenhower sat down with aliens. I have a problem with that kind of stuff because I just don't see the aliens doing anything like that. I don't think they would need to. Why make a deal with them? It just like I always have. Every time I try to think of that in my mind,
it's just, okay, we're here and we're gonna give Overwatch. We're gonna protect your nation. But we don't want you to come out with disclosure. That way, they don't know we're here, and we don't tip off our adversaries that are not human either, and to give them a tactical edge. So if you keep your mouth shut that we're here, we're going to play ball with you to let you determine your own future. But you're going to have to meet these concessions for us because there's a reason, and I have no idea why at this point, that they don't want to be overtly out and among us to say, hey, we're here. I don't know why. I can only speculate. There's many reasons that it could be that I have no idea at this point because it's so dynamic. But it is short-sighted to think that humans have not made some kind of contractual agreement with non-humans at some point to facilitate a truce or an alliances. That would be the natural order of things. You find that, in every, predator and prey all throughout nature of symbiosis of organisms needing to get to be able to exist in the same environment, but they have to feed, they have to exist, by their nature. Lions have to eat flesh. They can't eat grass. So, you there are, you want to be humane about it, but, the leopard can't change its spots. So I'm just saying that there's a natural order to things, and we can only compare to what we've seen throughout history of different species and different legends and myths, and we have to look at all of this at face value. We have to look at the oldest statues, the panels, and not try and give them all these grandiose explanations. Let's just look at them at face value. And make it simple as possible. And what do we see? Because you do see alliances, you do see warring gods. There's evidence all over the place of melted megaliths that were in like 3-foot wide diagonal swaths, melted like marshmallows. And scientists acknowledge that is not natural. So how do you explain it? Humans didn't do it. They didn't build the megaliths. If they did it with advanced machinery because there are high-speed tool marks on them that were made with power equipment. And where did they go? They disappeared at about 3000 BC. Gone. That's when all megalithic construction stopped. If you can find any first-hand dating out there, I would love to see it because there isn't any. I've been looking for 7 years. They find a culture, or like with the Great Pyramid, there's a 2-inch statue that's head was off of it, found in the Valley Temple. And, oh, it's Khufu's pyramid.
Mm.
The greatest construction on the planet, and they attribute it to a freaking 2-inch doll found in the dumpster. Come on. You know, we're not that stupid. Well, maybe we are, but we need to stop being stupid.
Oh yeah, I mean, again, I think what the problem is with the stuff that happened in the past. I don't know if we're ever going to really figure out exactly what happened. I mean, the problem is we haven't accepted what's going on in the present. So how are we going to understand what happened in the past unless somebody explains it to us? I mean, we could look at things and they're mysteries, but we're not going to ever really have true answers. We can't. I don't see how it's possible they ever come to some solid conclusion on some of the things like you're talking about.
There are circumstances that are coming about that are forcing them to have to increase their frequency and their close proximity. So I think disclosure is going to happen, whether on our terms or on their terms. But I think that there are larger things in play that is going to necessitate that they no longer have control of the narrative to the convenience of staying hidden any longer. I think that there are some natural things taking place in these precessional cycles every 26,000 years. We're right at the cusp of the halfway mark. And this is what Randall is crying to the high heavens about. We're right on the edge of another major impact event because our solar system is going above the galactic plane where we're going back into the 8-lane traffic. So if we don't get our shit together and have some kind of a means like 0-point energy to mitigate that as a planet, as a species, we're going to get whacked. And we need a little help with that. So if we don't even know that they're here, and all of a sudden they show up and say, okay, guys, we got a year to get our shit together. Here's the game plan. And everybody's like, oh, crap, aliens. Yeah. You know, they're done. You know, we need time to adjust. You know, we don't like change, you know, because, you know, historically change is dangerous. You know, what we can't understand, we fear. And when it's completely out of our understanding and there's no paradigm match in our entire mind's inventory, you know, a lot of people just completely shut down. You know, it's too much too fast. And so I get what you're saying about Gillibrand, but I don't think she needs a reminder. They come out and they speak to this at Congress when they need to embarrass the DOD for not doing their job. They are giving the Arrow office a chance to do the right thing because they've embarrassed Moultrie and Bray and Susan Go for putting out that freaking dog and pony show that they did with controlling the head of Arrow like they did and hamstringing him when he said that there were some unique flight characteristics, and then they immediately jumped in with balloons and all this mundane crap.
Oh, that was embarrassing.
Yeah,
that was embarrassing.
The DOD and the Air Office are complying, so she doesn't need to come out and embarrass them right now. And when they have something definitive that they can tell us, they will, and they are letting us know that they are on track. You know that they're gaining ground. We need to give them a chance to follow through because if they were not, if Arrow and them were not complying with the intent of Congress, Congress would still be out there. You would have Burchett out there. You would have Gillibrand. You'd have all them. Carson out there railing against them like they were in the media. The reason they're not doing it isn't because they've been pressured into silence. It's because they are getting compliance and they don't, you know, that's part of the deal. They're not going to keep cracking their knuckles in public, embarrassing them if they're doing the right thing. They're giving them a chance to follow through. And there's a, you know, with the new laws of immunity and amnesty, you know, there's a lot of people that I think that are, you know, we've got public information that there are people coming forward and giving testimonies in closed doors. Congress is getting the knowledge they want with or without the DOD. They can be part of that delivery system if they so choose. And I think that Arrow is going to bear good fruit at some point, but they're not sitting back and relying on them any longer to be the sole author of this investigative body. They are taking investigations themselves now. So they are like with Malmstrom. they already knew the answers to those questions in the spring that they asked in the Wilson documents. They didn't ask those just random out of a hat. Here's a good question. No, they already had the answers, and they wanted to see if they were going to be honest and give them an honest evaluation and answer for it. They were establishing their position like a trial jury would the prosecution and the defense. They were laying out their case, and Bray and Moultrie came out belligerent that we're going to lie our asses off to you. That was the wrong move. And guess what? They're not in charge of this program anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, but I guess here's the question I have though. Who is in charge? Who is the wizard? That's what I want to know. I mean, I don't think it's not Go, it's not Moultrie. I mean, I don't even think it's anyone in the Pentagon actually. I think the wizard or wizards are actually somebody within some of these defense or weapons manufacturing organizations. That's what I think.
Complex.
Oh, yeah. Somebody there. It's not the Pentagon. I think at some point in the past, it was
a fourth intelligence branch that they didn't know existed so much that has the executive control of the UFO technologies over the DoD or over the DOE and the Department of Energy and such. That there's another entity out there that I would say something on the lines of the legendary MJ-12, let's say, something of that magnitude and secrecy. That has
there
that
has
kind
to
of
be.
Because you remember early last year about April last year, Lou came out and said that and that's when Burchett and all them were told that they need to back off a little bit, pushing so hard because Lou said that they found a group that they didn't even know existed and that they were trying to help them. They wanted to be their friends and do the right thing. They weren't there to attack them and prosecute them. So, hey, work with us. We're not here to prosecute you and embarrass you and completely hamstring you. We're trying to help you do the right thing with the will of government because they are not, some of these guys, I dare say, think they're the fourth branch of government and that our civil government only exists by their leisure, which is bullshit. They don't have that authority, and Congress is taking that back to let them know, no, you do not have the authority just because they hold these technologies and it's so profound and potentially civilization changing with what the implications are. It does not give them the authority to override the intent of Congress and our Constitution. And some of these guys forgot that.
I think somewhere in the past, I don't know if we're ever going to learn where this happened exactly, but authorities that were elected actually passed on that authority to somebody else somehow in some sort of a deal or I don't understand how this is possible, but they did. That authority was moved from elected officials to unelected officials, and it stayed that way for decades. I think it happened sometime in the 50s. I mean, I don't think because I just can't imagine it starting anywhere after that. I think somewhere probably during the Eisenhower administration, at some point that authority was passed over to. I mean, he actually expressed concerns about the military-industrial complex on his way out, and I think something happened during his administration that, or maybe it was when it was changing administrations between Jim and Truman, but somewhere along the line that there had to be some passing of the torch. Okay, I know we're the elected officials, but here we're going to pass the torch over to you now, the weapons manufacturers, and you are going to control this, and then this way we have plausible deniability. Right. I mean, because you look at the embarrassing 1994 and 1997 Roswell reports that came out of the government. You have in 1994, you had the General Accounting Office coming out saying, oh, all the records from Roswell from 1946 all the way into 1949 are just gone, disappeared, right? Because they were looking. There was that Stephen Schiff was looking from New Mexico was looking for Roswell stuff, and then you had the embarrassing 1997 Roswell report from the U.S. Air Force when they tried to say it was crash test dummies from the 1950s that were actually the actual alien bodies. Yeah. It's so embarrassing. The Air Force had absolutely zero witnesses, right, on their side, right, and on the other side you had hundreds of witnesses in Roswell who had stepped forth and starting with Jesse Marcel Sr. and the hundreds of other people after him that were actually you've seen that, what I'm talking about. And
what were the cases that brought you on board with this, that you saw that the records went missing from those the encounters that were over these ships that got you incensed on this? where they came back and said the records were lost. What were those?
Well,
You talking
all the
Yeah, I'm talking
teletypes,
Shannon.
telegrams, all the
Well,
information
Shannon
that was.
There's a couple of cases on ships that brought Shannon on board
Yeah.
with it. And
Yeah,
that they
mine's
said they
the
lost.
mine's the orb, the craft of unknown origin was above the John F. Kennedy. It was like late July of 1971, and yeah, I heard the stories on several occasions. I looked into it. I found out it really did happen. I got a hold of was contacted by a first-hand witness. We saw all that craziness, and I looked into the logbooks, and they're gone for those months that I was looking into. So
Well, that's what I'm saying. Where did they go? I mean, that's exactly the same thing that happened with Roswell. All the records from 1940, they even covered their tracks. They took all the records, all the telegrams, and any kind of documentation that was sent.
Lou's emails they were mandated to be kept in perpetuity because they covered sensitive folders that he handled, that include Guantanamo Bay and things like that. They had to be kept forever because of the legalities and things that come with that. So, he for the record, they say that they were deleted, but he already he has a fairly good certainty that they really weren't. They were just moved off the server.
They're moved to someplace else.
They still have them. They're just playing
they have to have
hardball.
them. You can't just throw history in the toilet. I mean, that's what they're. I mean, if you're going to tell me that all the records from the only atomic bomb group in the world, which was Roswell from 1946 and into 1949, you're going to tell me that all those records were just tossed away and burned or somewhere in an incinerator. I don't believe that. That's a lie. Okay, how come you have the ones? How come they have the records from before that and after?
I hear they weren't just called in after the fact because they were such high trained troops. They were the ones that armed the nuclear weapons and facilitated the bombings of Japan.
Right.
I heard that they trained I think from what I read recently, if I can remember it accurately, after Trinity crash recoveries, they specifically trained the radars they rang the dinner bell with a nuclear device, I think, and then when these craft came in, they hit them with a new radar. And they weren't prepared for it and knocked them out of the air. They took them down. In other words, it wasn't an accident that they happened to fly into our new radar system that was fielded. From what I read, it was an intentional, shoot them out of the sky type scenario with the radar. Which I don't know that that's fact, but it's worth talking about for consideration because we have to explore these topics. We can't just take the first narrative that gets flipped out there as the status quo and accepted as fact because we've already established they are, for various reasons, lying considerably. And I agree with, Lou said at one point that some of these SAPs legitimately, when people like Harry Reid passed away and things, that their sponsors, they are so specialized with their SAPs and things, when their sponsors are no longer there and they don't know who to come into to report to anymore, they didn't intentionally become a legacy group without a handler, so to speak. That's the way it happened. And then, so where do you bring a program like that and reintroduce yourself back into the whole of government again? Who do you approach? I get that, that it's so profound that what they're sitting on, and they don't know that there's other SAPs out there like it. They're like, crap, we're just going to have to sit on us and keep our mouth shut, and we'll know when it's right to move it forward. But until then, we're just going to sit down and say nothing because we can't afford a security breach. So they don't, because it's too profound to get out into public circulation, and you can't tell your friends without telling your enemies. So you can't tell a president because they come and go. You can't tell, even congressmen. Look what happened to the guy that was like Presley or whatever his name was, that was in his seat for like 25, 30 years, and then Cortez knocked him out, completely unexpected. So you can't have the certainty that this group is going to be long-suffering there to manage it and that the information is going to stay secure. I get it that this would be so profound they don't want to tell anybody else. But it's not only their cross to bear. They, that is not just their burden to have to endure. That is why they have to trust our intelligence community. And it's being retooled like they did after 9/11 with Homeland. I think that they learned their lessons with that, and in putting, the equivalent, I hate to say it, the Patriot Act, but there's an equivalency, and I think that they've learned lessons to improve on that, even to bring these different compartmentalized groups under one heading to where there aren't any more. There is somebody that can get vision into all the silos, like Christopher Mellon was doing in some regard, where he was managing SAPs. I think that there's getting more vision on that, and that gives a vehicle for the legacy programs to come out. But I think there are some holdouts that are not wanting to comply with the law. And I think you're right. I think some of them originated in the late 50s.
Well, I guess the whole issue that it all boils down to this, though, for me in the end. Okay, I mean, we are. It seems like we've been making progress. Like we're moving forward with. We have the Arrow office. We have these reports being given to Congress. We have, classified reports being given to Congress. We have unclassified reports going to the people. But at the same time, right? It just seems to me like this is all just some giant facade. It's a game we're playing because they say stuff like, we don't know what they are. We're trying to figure it out. But in my mind, it's like, wait a minute, wait. Okay, this is all fine and dandy, but guess what? I think they already do know what it is. And see, that's where I'm at. That's the problem I have. They already know.
Because see, they have that same model from the 50s where they think that it's going to cause rioting in the streets and society's going to break down. I think that they are, and I don't blame them for being careful. They need to let it. It's like, when you have a big fish on the line, you don't want to pull the string and set the hook too fast and it's going to snap. You do want to test the strength of it and give it, let it get acclimated. It's like slow boiling a frog. If you turn it up really fast, it's going to hop out of the pan. But you do it gradually, it can acclimate and you achieve your objective. I think that they are being judicious in some degree, that Congress has a plan. If they, in fact, know that there's, for fact, non-human entities that we're engaged with, that they have a contingency, if that is the fact, to slow roll it out, to trickle out, evaluate, trickle out some more, evaluate. That's prudent. I don't blame them for that.
Yeah. Well, I guess, I'm probably wrong. I'm probably, I could be, I'm probably wrong because I just wanted everything out there all at once. Just pull the. I'm pull the Band-Aid off kind of guy. I'm wrong I'm probably wrong.
I think we would be okay with that.
I think we would do it, but that's where I'm at. I think we should pull the Band-Aid right
counseling. I think it would destabilize some people, but they were not stable to begin with. I dare say. People like Mick West. If he were shown the evidence tomorrow, I truly do feel bad of the implications that would cause him, because he didn't come to terms with it. He dissociated from it. There's a difference. He didn't learn how to face his demons. He denied they exist. And that's why he can't give up one case as being anomalous, because then it cracks that door open to all his fears come rushing right back. And for everyone Mick West out there, there's a million silent Mick West out there that have the same fears, that are in every branch of government and every office and every science group. That he represents the dogmatic people that fear it. And I understand people fear change, but when you've dealt with change all your life, like some people like me that have thrived in adversity, this is just another walk in the park. I can adapt to this too, or I don't, but I'll try. So, that's just the nature of it. But when people have a life of gradualism and it's been nice and stable and they got 2.5 kids and, they've never had a serious illness, they are going to be for them, it's going to be the hardest to adjust to any profound changes, whether it's non-human entities or major cataclysms. Because see, there's a whole line now that are terrified that Randall Carlson and Graham Hancock are correct, that we are living in a very dynamic planet, and catastrophism is the norm, not gradualism. And the people that have been espousing gradualism for 200 years now are terrified at the implications that we are a dynamic planet that gets hit, that we get bombarded in regular cycles and intervals. a lot of them can't accept that fact, and that's why they so hard back. The Ancient History Committee and the Catastrophism Committee have their own McWests to go against. So, they're under attack like never before, just like we are. And if you go back and look at every major breakthrough in science and things leading up to it, they had the most staunch opponents right before the shift, like with the Younger Dryas Impact Hypothesis Group. In 2007, they were heretics. In 2018, now it's accepted science fact. So, times do change with facts.
Yeah. I see the picture that was released by Jeremy Corbell. I see that as just one of many images that I'm guessing that's going to come out this year. And it's the best way to actually desensitize people. Like my wife, I learned about that on Twitter, but my wife, she knows what I do. She knows who my friends are. And she tells me, hey, there was something released on one of her websites. She says, yeah. And she sent me the link where they say, yeah, honey, I just saw it about 5 minutes ago. It's people like my wife who gets this information, and they're getting, just, it always catches people's eye. I mean, look at all the news articles these days. Nothing catches your eye, but I guarantee you that picture with from Jeremy Corbell, that'll catch your eye.
Well, he had more news today, actually. Did you see that?
No, tell me all about it.
He was talking. I guess he had a new source with that Navy ship that had those objects floating above it, and the source was telling him that there was no way that these could have been drones because they were like 2,000 miles away from any land, and there was no base for them to be flying from. Yeah,
and they were saying it was Chinese drones. They went on the deck of those Chinese junks or wherever the ships were, and they did drones, but they weren't operational, and they weren't the type that they saw in the air, and they didn't have the hang time. They did have drones on the Chinese ships, and then in the media and then in the military industrial complex pounced on that. And that's where Moultrie and Bray were trying to insinuate was that, well, there were Chinese, ships in the area, and they did have drones on them. But see, they don't tell you the whole truth of it. They infer it. They didn't lie, but they did through omission. You see, they played a little, these are weasel words that they did. They played a little, it's what they didn't say with that. And they were trying to make it sound like it was fact, but it wasn't. But they inferred it. And, we're not that freaking stupid. And that was an insult to the American people to try and play this game.
Well, that's what I'm saying. When they do that, and then you have the debunkers saying, "Oh, it's the bokeh effect." I mean, it confuses people. Oh, okay, it must mean nothing then, and then they just walk away.
With Nick West and Lou, when he's still trying to tell Lou at the end, well, these pilots don't know their equipment, but I know my flashlight in video games, so I'm right. And he's like, okay, we'll agree to disagree because I'm not going to sit here and argue with you. Obviously, you're an imbecile. He didn't say that, but I did. But what's up, Shannon?
I have no idea what I was going to say, but I'm sure it was a brilliant idea.
Well, you were talking about the
orb. Bray and Moultrie lying about the drones over the Princeton and stuff. With the Chinese drones.
Yeah, there's no way. Well, it'd be, well, they said they was up for over 12 hours, right? Those drones, or that was a different circumstance. But yeah, a long time ago, they cut out, talking about that Chinese boat had nothing to do with it.
And obviously, Mick West was trying to say that the drone was a drug smuggling plane in the Tic Tac incident. They didn't have just one. They were Kevin Dave was watching them come down in groups of 6 to 12 that were laying in 100,000 feet low Earth orbit for 2 weeks. They were coming down in groups of 6 to 12. They went from 38,000 feet to 50 feet in 0.78 seconds. It's like 42,000 miles an hour from instantaneous speed and stop. What does that? And then to get to the cap point in less than a minute and 6 miles. So it wasn't just one Tic Tac. It was a whole swarm of them in low Earth orbit. That was what traumatized Kevin Day so badly, because he was sitting watching these things on a screen, and he wasn't getting any feedback from the senior staff. Hey guys, what do I call it? What the hell's going on here? And they're like, nothing. Don't say anything about it. They're not there. You're hallucinating. Believe what we tell you. Don't believe your eyes. And most people can't accept that, and I wouldn't. And that's why he was so traumatized all this time, because they made him convinced him that he didn't actually see what he saw until the New York Times article came out, and he started seeing other people come out and telling the truth, and then he felt vindicated, which he was.
Yeah.
He wasn't crazy after all. But you have people like that are disingenuous, like Mick West, because they have dissociated from the truth. It's just like with hell, what's that physicist scientist name now that's complete inert mass? Neil deGrasse Tyson. Yeah, he's going to be in the dumpster bin of bad science when this is over with. Now he's starting to jump on board and saying, well, maybe there's some there after all. Well, a little late for that one, dude.
Well,
So
I saw that video. I know what you're
montage
talking
of that.
about. I know what you're talking about with Neil deGrasse Tyson. I don't think he really is saying that. I mean, what I saw. I mean, some people took it that way when they watched that video. I didn't think he was saying.
I didn't take it that way, but I did see the comments.
Yeah, you saw the comments, and some of the comments there. I was like, wait a minute. I don't think he's really saying anything different here.
You'll notice that they use a lot of the same authorities on TV now they're confusing. Neil deGrasse is confusing popular TV shows with science, because just because you're popular on a TV show does not make you a premier scientist to speak with authority. They're bringing people out that are a one flash wonder, and now they're trotting them out on all these programs as if they're an authority on it or other aspects of the phenomena, whether it's ancient history or the UFOs, either one. They're not. They just talk a good game, and they talk the narrative that they're hired to say. So they're playing to the audience and to their paycheck, and that's how you get people that fell like Greenwald. They started out like like in a Greer, they started out for the right reasons, I think, but they took a wrong curve because they were in it for the wrong reasons at some point, and they weren't in it for the good of the whole. I'm not in this to make a dime. I'm in it because I care about humanity and our future.
You have to think about, I always get a kick out of some of the things that Neil deGrasse Tyson says, and it's unbelievable to me that they just keep carting him out to provide answers. He says things like, "Hey, why don't if these people get abducted by aliens, why don't you steal an ashtray?" Okay, for one thing, I don't think these alien beings are smoking cigarettes or cigars or anything like that.
No.
Right? It's totally absurd.
That was snarky.
It's snarky.
Exactly.
And then the other thing he was saying recently, which really, really bothered me, was that, there's cell phones all over the place. We're taking pictures of everything. You would think that these people getting abducted would be able to film the inside the craft already. Like he
take some good high 4K resolution.
Yeah. Well, obviously he doesn't understand what's going on here. He's never read a book about it. He has no idea what he's talking about when it comes to this subject, because if he did, he would never make such an idiotic statement like that.
Shill. He may acknowledge the truth in private, but he's a paid shill. He is sold out to science for popularity and fame. He has prostituted his profession for fame and money.
Well, that's what I say too. I agree with that, because you know why? Is because I can't imagine someone of his intelligence. I can't imagine someone even Mick West's intelligence. I can't imagine intelligent people actually not seeing this reality at this point. I mean, I just can't see it. I don't understand how they're. I mean, obviously, you would think that if you're an intelligent person, you would be interested in this. You would be interested enough to buy some books and study it.
Irrational fears, though. When you have, Mick West is operating out of dissociation.
I think he could be. I think that's part of it, right? I think also part of it is that he's operating out of money, because I think there is a market for debunkerism, and it's a smaller market. There's more people are interested in UFOs, but there is a group out there. There is some niche market that people looking for. Please tell me it's not aliens from space. Please tell me I'm not going to get abducted. Okay, Mick West said the Calvine UFO is just a military kite. Okay, I could go to bed now.
Yeah,
that's why I think there's a market
for that. For doing your hobby, that's fantastic, but it doesn't make it reality. And I've had these debates with him on Twitter. I do actually feel bad for him, because when reality comes crashing in, I really feel bad for how he's going to not be able to cope with this. And that's going to reflect on a lot of people in society. And this is one thing that he needs to realize. When he's out there debunking this and making other people confide in him to think that he is putting out good science and good faith, he's not only bringing himself down, he's going to cause other people that would have maybe otherwise acclimated in a healthy way, and they didn't.
Exactly.
They're all of a sudden going to be hitting a wall just like him because they trusted the wrong people. It's on him, a certain percentage of that when that happens. Not if, it's going to be when. And that's on him because he had that influence, and he did not allow those people to progress with the facts and adjust. And instead, they blindly trusted him because, well, if Mick's still holding out, I'm still holding out because he makes a good argument. Well, he doesn't with facts. The facts are against him. They are selectively choosing what they want to believe. They're creating a dogma. They're not following the science.
No, they're not following. They're not following. What witness statements. They're not following history. They're not following like science, the Ariel school incident, for instance. How can anybody look at that incident and walk away thinking, "Oh, they all were hallucinating," or "Oh, it was mass hysteria," or
a puppet show?
No
puppet show, man, in the bushes.
Puppet show in the bushes.
Who doesn't go out into vine-infested bushes and put on a puppet show for nobody?
I should. I'm gonna go out. I'm gonna talk to. You know what I should do? I'm gonna see if I'm gonna contact some puppeteers and present them with that theory.
I'm gonna strap a half a side of beef to my back here and hike down into the bottom of the ravine and take my my lion whistle down there. And when there's a good headwind, so the mountain lions down there can come eat my stupid ass for running down there with stakes strapped to me, which is what would happen if you were out in the bush giving a puppet show. It's that freaking ludicrous.
Yeah, the whole concept though. Now, it wasn't to his credit, it wasn't his theory, but he promoted it. He put it out there. And he tried to make it look like, hey, it's crazy. He tried to make it look like, well, this is just as crazy as the aliens. Like, no. Why? What's so crazy about aliens? There's nothing crazy about aliens. Nothing.
No, it's not. He was trying to play to the 75-year disinformation propaganda campaign that the Air Force was doing. He's still trying to pander to that false narrative that was an affront to the United States citizens.
He liked some tweet that you and I were tagged in today.
Who's that?
Eric Weinstein, right here.
Weinstein?
Eric Weinstein, yeah. So I don't know if you read this. Aunt Rob Heatherly. Would be nice to hear more from Eric Weinstein since he shook off the buzz from the CIA Kool-Aid.
Yeah.
I have no idea what he's talking about. What's he talking about?
I think when he had the switch pitch for Lou when he couldn't make it to Italy or San Marino, that he gave the presentation, and that he's saying the secondary evidence was overwhelming, and that he did get informed of some when he went to visit with Lou. But he understands that there is some gaslighting going on, and I don't know exactly what context he's talking about. I'm not saying that he was lied to. I'm saying that there is a narrative that is genuine, but they are having to administer for the right reasons, and I don't know what they are, and I don't know the context. I just know how it's been explained numerous times by numerous people, not just Lou, but many people that are in the mainstream narrative in these programs where they talk about how they are facilitating information flow, that they have certain processes that they are trying to adhere with to do it in the right fashion that's going to be healthy for everybody concerned. Yeah. So I think him being the rebel, that some of that he doesn't agree with, which is normal. You're not going to agree with something like that, in entirety, because there is no right way 100%. Most of this is gray. There's very little black and white to this at all. Yeah. So it's a judgment call, and it's not going to be a universal agreement ever. It's just it's like the best laid battle plans. They go out the window when the first shot's fired, and then you just wing it. And that's what we're going to have to do with this for the most part.
Rob, you brought up Lou. Recently, you and I spoke with him, and we're able to put out some information. What information is that?
You talking about with his book?
No, with the post about him reading everyone. He does read. He does read everybody's post. Go ahead.
Yeah, that he very much appreciates that he reads everything everybody writes, and he encourages them to continue with that because it does keep him motivated, because there are a lot of days that he wants to give up because he feels underappreciated by the government and the populace, the civilians and things. When all he, the loudest, wheel gets the grease, when when his wife or his kids come up and say, hey, they're really bashing you today, he's not seeing where they're, the good stuff from them. He's getting the negative feedback, but he does go through it and read. He doesn't always have a chance to respond, and most of the time he doesn't. But he wants to encourage people.
He does read it.
He's not begging for sympathy. He's not begging for accolades. So don't get me wrong. That's not what he's saying. He's saying he does appreciate sincere encouragement, and that he does read it and he appreciates it.
Yeah.
So yeah, we've got to keep these guys motivated. That we appreciate what they're doing, and we have to conduct ourselves with the skeptics and things. We have to be civil in our discourse with each other. If there is healthy skepticism and they're being respectful.
Okay, excuse me. My earmuffs are hurting me. What are you, civil discourse with debunk? Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? I took those. We're done with that. I'm done with that one. I'm playing games with those guys anymore.
Oh, some people,
no more Mr. Nice Guy.
No more Mr. Nice Guy for me.
Drag it out in the alley and have it out, but we need to demonstrate that we are worthy of what we expect.
Well, not all. Some debunk. I mean, I don't. Yeah, some
that are disingenuous. I'm not talking about them. I'm not talking about them.
Skeptics,
I'm talking about healthy skeptics that are coming at this from a healthy perspective, that are willing to follow that are teachable. If they will follow assignments, then I'm on board with it. If they're not, they need to be. The way I've started doing it, and it's not. This isn't mean spirited. If you can't tolerate somebody's narrative, and it is not isolated, then have the decency to stop arguing with them and just block them and move on. Yeah. You're do yourself a favor and them a favor, and just break it off. Because if you find that somebody is that dogmatic to your narrative, and I don't care what the topic is, if it's that hostile, they already have a set position no matter what you're going to say, and you're not going to change their mind. So stop beating a dead horse. Just block and move forward. Engage your resources with people that are willing to listen and consider, that are being genuine into giving you an audience to consider what you have to say. If they are completely dogmatic and they come out at every post you make and say, no, you're completely wrong, you're stupid, you're an idiot, and just completely contest everything you post, block them. Just stop with it. Drop it. Move on.
Well, actually, I got caught up in that just yesterday or the day before.
I do too. I'm guilty of it.
What happened was I actually did a video about it. I did a podcast about it where I talked about this. I put up somebody started saying that I must be on drugs and stuff like that, and I started engaging with it, and then I was like, they're
gaslighting you, man. Don't let them get you there.
Well, I ended up blocking the guy this morning actually.
I can't allow that. They want to throw people off their game and be irrelevant to the conversation. That is their goal, is to disrupt and subterfuge. And when you recognize that, block them and move on.
Yeah.
Done.
Yeah. That's my new policy anymore. I'm just blocking them. Block right when I start seeing people on my Twitter feed or even my
start trolling.
Well, yeah, well they start trolls. I was getting trolled, and I was like, I actually talked about it, though. I did talk about it on the podcast what this person was saying. I had to break down why everything he said was wrong. And then, of course, this morning I saw that this guy posted something else that was really, I thought was...
And most of them don't have their
vulgar.
They don't have skin in the game. They don't use their real names. They don't use their
real names.
They are done. They're sock puppet accounts with maybe 10 to 25 followers that can just come out with the most god-awful crap.
No, it got vulgar.
Things. And there's no accountability. So I tell people, look, if you want to have a critical discussion with me that's this heated, get some skin in the game, use your real name, put your reputation on the line like I am, and meet me on an equal footing. Then we can talk on critical discussions like this. Don't engage me from an anonymous account with this kind of vitriol where you have nothing on the line, but I do. That's not fighting fair. And I have nothing to say to people like that at that level. I will block them and move on, because they won't invest their own reputation I'm not going to risk my resources and mine when they have nothing to lose.
Well, what I actually said in that latest podcast at the end, I pointed out that I don't have time to be debating with low level dum-dums, lower tiered dum-dums. I can't. I have the time for that. So I need the bigger fish. You know, I need upper tier dum-dums. I'll worry about them. You know, if I got in a conversation with higher tier dum-dums, then that's
I call them unteachable. When I figure out that somebody's unteachable, if they aren't willing to listen and I recognize it, I'm done. I block and I move on. I disengage, because you can't waste resources with people that aren't willing to be.
Yeah, you're not going to get anywhere.
Your dialogue. They're in it for subterfuge. They want to disrupt. They don't want this to move forward for whatever reason. Or some of them just get their kicks coming out onto Twitter and anonymous accounts and getting their frustrations out. It's right. These are things people can say online from anonymous accounts that they would never say to a person's face in person, because they get knocked the hell out. So, yeah, agreed, Simon. Block them. And you asked the question, what's the next thing the government's going to do after they acknowledge that this is not known human terrestrial technologies? I think they're going to try and understand why they're here, and ease the public's fears, and try to establish what are they, why they're here. I think it's the natural progression, because people are going to be in fear. If they come out and just say, okay, they're here, they're not human, but we have no idea what they are and we can't stop them, that really ain't a good plan. It's like having my front door off the house and telling my kids, well, don't be afraid, but I don't know what can come through the door, but I just know there's something out there and it's big and it's ugly, but I don't know if it's a danger or not. So don't be scared unless it comes in the door and eats you. You need a little better plan than that.
Yeah. That's a funny analogy. But no,
I listen to this guy all day.
No, you're right. I think he's right.
Hey, Shannon, are you still there? Yeah, I'm still here. It's only been an hour and a half since you started talking.
Sorry, man.
He always says sorry, and I say, it's not like I gotta go to a job. So my job is to listen to.
You send me up and turn me loose like a top.
I think what they need to say. What they need to say after it does come out, what I think needs to be said is that we've been seeing these things for a long time, and it doesn't seem like they're here to harm us. It looks like they're here to study us and just move on. I don't think you say it looks like we have no I think you try to.
We don't want to instill fear where it's not necessary, but we do want a healthy respect for it. We can't expect all love and light, because historically that isn't the entire context of what we can look back at. There are different times, different ways, different methods, and there are contemporary different kinds, different ways, and different methods that we're being engaged. So we don't know, but we do know that we are maintaining a status quo for 5,000 years now, and the best indication of what's going to happen is what has happened. So I'm confident we're not left to our own devices, to the whims of one singular them that are out there. I don't believe that at all. History does not indicate that. Contemporary science doesn't indicate that. So I don't think we're left to our own devices, but we don't know what the game plan is, why all of a sudden that it's firing back up. But I think it has something to do with these 26,000 year cycles, and maybe even turf wars. I don't know. But I do think that scientists are even finding that they agree that there wasn't enough on planet Earth for DNA to develop, that likely we're not from here either, whether you want to engage with transpermia, coming in on comets and things that seeded it, or whatever. But the point is that life likely, higher organisms didn't evolve here. So, there's a good chance we were terraformed here. The whole planet, the biome was. And like I said, when you have an advanced civilization, like what Elon Musk is talking about, we need to be able to get off the planet to survive as a species at some point, because this planet and the sun is not going to last forever. So we need to hedge our bets and spread out. And that's what these other civilizations would have done. And I think that's what we're seeing. We are an oasis in a bunch of dead rocks floating around, and they don't want to let those go because they are not that common. So why let one fall into the dumpster when you don't have to let it fall? And I think that us putting ourselves on the brink of exterminating the entire planet and sanitizing it for 10 to 100,000 years, I don't think they're going to allow that. But I also think that our planet always recovers from an impact, and sometimes it's necessary from the comets and things to give it new minerals and water, all kinds of different things to help organics grow. But there's a fine line between what's helpful and it's like taking medicine that kills you. It kind of defeats the purpose. So there's got to be a good compromise there, and I think that's what we're seeing is that we're reaching a tipping point for whatever reason, that there are several things in play, not just one. And we need to be, a lot of people have their specialities of what they focus on, and that's great. But we need to allow room for the entire big picture of possibilities. We can't exclude anything at this point because we don't know yet.
Maybe we're the tenants and they're the landlords, and they're here to collect the rent.
As far as we know,
maybe we were put here.
So
maybe like you said,
they're not here.
I don't apologize for owning my house. I don't apologize for being an American. I'm not apologizing for being a human on Earth. I was born here. It's my freaking home. If they don't like it, they can either go kick rocks or come, take me off of it. Either way, I am not going to apologize.
Well, what you were saying before that this could have been terraformed, and we came out of that. Maybe they terraformed this planet.
That natural environment.
Maybe they terraformed this planet a long time ago, like you said, and now then they were coming back to use it. Now they're ready to use it. But hey, look at this.
We were put here to be custodians, and Randall Carlson, he hasn't come out and stated why yet, but not just the Old Testament or the Vedics and the Sumerians. There's a lot of ancient manuscripts that talk about how we are uniquely custodians of this planet on the outward facing with other organic animal life at our level, that we are the stewards of that. That's what humans were given cognizance for. Partly is that we were dominion over it. It's not just the lord over it and just utilize the resources as we see fit. It's to be good stewards of it. So I think that it's kind of a deal breaker when we turn into a glowing hot molten rock with nuclear weapons. Call me crazy, but that's just my opinion.
No, I that makes sense. Makes sense. I mean, I think that you could be onto something. I don't really know. All I could tell you is this: the bottom line is this, as far as I could see, right, is that there's something here. There's a presence here. That's all I know. I mean, what exactly the really answer? I mean, you just went over a lot. I mean, it's mind blowing what you just talked about. I mean, I don't know if my brain is not capable.
What happens when you have a monopoly? When you have a monopoly, what happens? When you don't have a symbiotic environment, when you have too many predators, not enough prey, what happens? They wipe them all out. The nature abhors a vacuum. If there is a scale invariance fractal pattern in all of nature of energy propagation, and like rabbit populations and foxes and all this, they can find this pattern of fractals in everything. When there's too many rabbits and there's more foxes. When there's too many foxes and not enough rabbits and the foxes die out. There is a symbiotic yin and yang to everything of this cosmic balance at every scale and then of organic and inorganic that is observed. And it tips either way time to time, but the trend over time is up the middle. And that's where we want to keep it. And I think that there are fundamental reasons that these scales are tipping one direction or another that is necessitating this change at this time. And I don't think it's any one answer. I don't think it's any one them. I think we're dealing with a lot of different technology levels of them and types. You can't discount God. You can't discount the aliens. You can't discount AI. You can't discount earlier humans because in interdimensionals, that's what Bob Bigelow said, that they feel that all of this is in play. So at this point, it's easier to rule out what it's not than what it is because it seems to be all inclusive.
Yeah, I mean, it could be. I mean, this whole when you look at again, I always like to say that when you look at life, right? I mean, it's so this whole life. A lot of people take it for granted. I mean, but every minute, every second, to me, it's a gigantic miracle. None of it makes sense. I don't understand what's going on a lot of times. It's hard, you know. I know a lot of people think it's just what you see outside. It's the trees, it's the grass, it's it's the sky. But there's a lot more to it. You know, there's so many things we can't see just because we know that there's fish in the ocean. We know that there's animals in the jungle. I mean, we know all these things, but at the same time, there are things out there we just don't understand. And I don't think we're ever going to understand because this whole life, this whole existence, this whole universe, it's so big, it's so vast, there's so much going on, and it's wonderful, but at the same time, there's a lot of mysteries, and we want some answers. Again, it's just a confusing, you could just keep going down a rabbit hole.
Life itself is a miracle.
It's a miracle.
Exist. I mean, we take that for granted that we exist.
Right.
How the hell did that happen? We don't know. We don't have the answers. And until we can answer that, we really don't know anything. So how can we proclaim that we do and that we're conquerors of our environment and science has all the answers? Bullshit.
Science changes all the time. It constantly changes. In fact, I was just talking about, there was an astronomer back in the early 1900s named Simon Newcomb who talked about, who said that there was no way that anyone's ever going to come up with a heavier than air flight machine. And then 3 weeks later, the Wright brothers had their famous flight.
The patent offices stated around 1900 that pretty much everything that can be invented has been. So you guys are going to be out of a job within about a decade. How stupid is that?
It's unbelievably stupid.
Like Lou said, 150 years ago, we didn't even know that bacteria and viruses existed, but they're the largest biomass on the planet over all other organic mass, and they were right here all this time. We didn't know they existed. So how was it so hard to accept that there are other beings here that are sentient, that know how to hide, that are keeping themselves for whatever reason out of our purview? Why is that so out of the realm of possibilities?
Yeah, I mean, the people, there was that. The reason it seems silly to people, though, is that goes back to the 50s when the stigmatization program began, and that's why we are where we are at now. Now it's starting to come down because of the progress in the last 5 years, right? Because of when Lou Elizondo stepped out of the shadows in 2017, and the New York Times article, had those leaked videos. Things have started to change, and we're moving in a different direction now than the way we were before that. We were still seen to be on the go on the road to nowhere, on the road to just, hey, you saw UFO, you must be crazy. Now that's not the case anymore. It's starting to lessen, although we still have some people out there that are trying to maintain the days of old.
Yeah.
So
the age of innocence is over for humanity. There's always a season of we've identified at least 3 to 4 epochs of megalithic construction. What I'm understanding is that those happen to correspond with each one of these 26,000 year Kali Yuga cycles. That for each golden age period, there were a different set of megalithic builders that were dominant on the planet and different species that were dominant at the time. And the last iteration, I think, was the Blue Gods, because uniquely the temples in India are the last ones standing when the rest of them are rubble. But the ones in Malta and Baalbek and all them are just laid to waste. So you can identify different ages of man, different ages of golden ages that humanity was in existence, and other non-humans that were on the earth with us, whether peaceful and subversive, both. They were warring with each other at different times. But we're approaching another one of those ages that I don't know if we're ascending back up into the Silver Age yet, or if we're trying to get past that 13,000 year hump of hitting the superhighway that we need to prevent from getting whacked, which I think is the case.
Yep.
That we need to ease into the passing lane without getting hit, and mitigate that traffic and make it back out, alive and onto greener pastures. But I think there's going to be a bump in the road. So, that's why I think we're kind of heading. And I think there's going to be a fight for supremacy too on some of that, because everything fights for position. That is nature in itself. Nature abhors a vacuum. there is not going to be one dominant anything anywhere for very long. There's always that yin and yang balance.
Hey, Rob,
Yeah.
I just wanted to let you know, let's cut this right here, and we'll pick it up on another show maybe tomorrow if we're all up to it. Are you feeling better? You've been out for like, I don't know, 2 weeks.
Yeah, I've had
right?
This is the 5th day I haven't had a fever since New Year's. COVID.
I was telling
So,
everybody how sick you was, man.
I've got a lot on my mind. I've kept myself occupied down reading, obviously, and researching and studying and tying a lot of things together. And yeah, I got a lot to say. I got a lot more to say in due time. But people need to acclimate, and I need to acclimate. I mean, there's some things that I learned that I had to sit back and scratch my head a few days. It's like, wow, maybe I wish I didn't find that out, but I needed to know. So, okay, I'll accept it, I'll adjust, and I'll move on, to the new paradigms. It's okay. That's just the natural order of things. I can accept that.
Jim, where can we find your channel on YouTube?
It's Quark Zone.
Quark Zone. So right now, it's subscribed. If you're still with us, also hit that notification for maybe tomorrow. We'll see. Also, there was something else that was very important. Oh, you guys got to look at this. So if you're driving, just pull over, then look at this. Don't look at it while you're driving. All right, I'm getting this puppy in 4 days. There she is. That is my dog's sister. And we're bringing her home in 4 days, and I cannot wait. She's full-blood German Shepherd as well. All right, also, I was feeling a little better today than I have been, and I told everybody, hey, I'm going to go out and take some pictures. So let me show everybody real quick my pictures. Bam.
Wow.
Yeah, they're beautiful.
Yeah. Thanks, man. I really appreciate it. I got lucky too. It's like, where is that eagle? And sure enough.
Oh yeah, that is amazing. I couldn't even fathom being able to take a picture like that. It just blows my mind. This is what you would see on Wild Kingdom. When I was a kid, that just put me in awe. And to be seeing you just flipping them out there like playing cards to me, I'm like, what the hell?
Brought to you by
the good ones.
Brought to you by Mutual of Omaha.
Yeah.
Oh, I remember watching that as a kid. I loved it.
Yep. And then hee haw.
Hee haw.
Hee haw.
And go behind. Slap in.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are the
Let's
days.
See. Make sure I got everything ready to go. A few folks, panelists here, just stick around after the show. Any last words, Jim?
Yeah, hopefully my eagles are flying as high as your eagle was on Sunday.
We'll be rooting for you. Anything from Rob Heatherly?
No, I just appreciate everybody's time and bearing with me and my tirades and rants. I appreciate it. It's a learning process, so I don't have all the right answers, but I'm honestly trying to find them. That's all I can say.
Right. I wanted to again thank Swan P for his donation. If you guys do not know, myself, well, I should say Rob Heatherly and Lou Elizondo named a charity after me, and very honored. And
yeah, that hasn't fell to the wayside. That's going to be ramped up this year and set on fire. And Shane from Old Vet Symposium is going to help.
Yeah, so hopefully we'll have some more material. Maybe one day we'll have James Fox on the channel. I can almost see that happening. Make sure you check out Shane. I thought I was going to have him on tonight, but he had a interview with James Fox. So make sure, like I said, hit subscribe for Jim's channel, And let me go ahead and get things all ready here. Okay, I think we're done. Later, folks.
I'll take care, all right? Nothing but love for you. Nothing but love for you. You think they have any clue what's about to happen to them?
Oh, not a chance in hell. Good night.
Peace! Together we're the Three